We're previewing Dublin's hurling championship season here, brought to you by orgaretro.com. If you want 15% off this jersey here, or even that Galway jersey that Michael Verney's wearing, go to orgaretro.com and put in the promo code OurGame. You have this feeling that it's the second season for Mattie Kenny, and because of how it finished last season with the Laois defeat, and did have quite a good league, beat Tipperary in Thurles, went on and had a creditable semi-final performance against Limerick, went on and knocked Galway out of the championship in a make-or-break clash. But because of the manner of the defeat to Laois, just the fact that Dublin lost to Laois, a team that had come from the Joe McDonagh, you're almost sensing that this is make or break for Mattie Kenny.
No, I do think it's make or break. If you look back to that Saturday evening on June 15th last year, there's no way you would have expected Dublin would be where they are, some 15 months later. I think they're in a worse place than they were 15 months ago. I think they seem to have less players available to them. I think maybe even some of the younger players that they brought through maybe haven't progressed to the level maybe that Matty thought. They still haven't unearthed this marquee forward that they've been looking for a long, long time. They've gone from a good league campaign last year and potentially what could have been a really, really good championship, and maybe they would have hopped off tip in a quarter final, to limping out really, really disappointingly. And now you're looking at another championship campaign. If they go out kind of without a whimper, you think, where would Mattie Kenny be going in the third year? There were some green shoots there, as we said on June 15th last year. They disappeared fairly quickly. They did a really poor league campaign. I take the Wexford game out of it this year. I watched them down in Cusack Park against Clare, and I was really disappointed with them, I have to say. I'm not too sure where they are, and they're heavy favourites going into this Laois game, their first game, and you're expecting a response, but I'm not sure if we're going to get it. What are your own kind of opinions on it? You obviously have the finger on the pulse a bit more in around Dublin, and probably chatting to a good few of the cooler lads as well.
There's little doubt that Dublin don't have the depth. There's no doubt about that, and I think they have the right manager for the job. Pat Gilroy did excellently in 2018. I think that really stabilised the ship. Dublin had been circling the drain for a couple of years. He turned it around a little bit, gave them a bit of solidity. They had some good performances. And we know in the past few years that Dublin have been unbelievably close to beating Wexford, Kilkenny and a couple of other teams, and obviously did beat Galway. So we know that they're good enough to be competitive. A lot of these games they've lost in the last 5 or 10 minutes. You know that, I know that. They've been pushed really close. There's been articles about how if games ended in the 65th or even 70th minute, how many wins they would have had. So I think Matty is the man for the job, and they're not going to find a better manager than him. And I know from in a dressing room with him for 5 years, the level of preparation and insane levels of preparation that he puts into things. So I don't think you're going to find someone better from that point of view. People would say biased. I don't really care. I mean, I'm talking from first-hand experience. They've fewer players again this year. Darragh O'Connell stepped away, had a child. Sean Tracy has stepped away. He's not involved. Both of these lads started in that game against Laois last year where things came unstuck. I'm not saying either of the two boys had particularly brilliant performances, but you're down a couple of more bodies again. They just don't really have the marquee forwards. The best players are playing Gaelic football, and if they had them, we would have All-Ireland contenders. There's no way around it, is there?
No, and just on that, there's still that reliance on Conal Keaney, who's ageless and just seems to keep on going. He's 38 years old. In all fairness, there should be other lads stepping up. When I look at that forward line, probably outside of, I would assume Keaney would start against Laois on Saturday evening, and outside of that, you're probably looking at maybe Danny Sutcliffe, maybe Roland Hayes. Outside of that, there's seems to be 9 or 10 players that are kind of interchangeable and come in and out at different stages. Interesting to hear I was chatting to Eddie Brennan recently, and he laid down the gauntlet, I would say, to Dublin. Just a couple of quotes from Eddie. Said, I expect Dublin to come with absolutely everything. If there's anything in these guys, I've been in their position in sport, and we all know what it's like to get clipped. And then you have that team the following year. It's easy to motivate lads and get them focused. And I fully expect that we're going to be dealing with a different animal. If there's any bit of character in these Dublin lads, any bit of real heart in them, we'll get the full brunt of that. They're going to want for no motivation whatsoever. They're not going to be found wanting. I expect them to be snarling at the bit for this. we're the team that they want. They've had to listen to this for a year. It made a big impact on the lower tier team taking them out. It caught all the headlines. So they really want to rectify that and put the record straight. They're going to come with the Thunder, so the challenge is now there for us to be able to meet that. And while I agree with a lot of what he's saying, I do think it was quite smart from him, to be honest with you, because he's built them up that they're going to come with this absolutely ferocious effort. It's not as if he's thinking any different, but I'm not sure how much is there. I'm not sure if this Dublin squad at the moment, and with the general mood around the place, are capable of blowing teams away, even Laois away. And I just think they've slipped back an awful lot in the past 15 months. And if Mark Kavanagh was fit for Laois and they had a full complement going in against Dublin, I'd quietly fancy Laois. There's a lot of expectancy in Dublin. I'm just not sure.
Where's the expectancy in Dublin?
No, there's an expectancy that they're going to blow Laois away. And
no,
the bookmakers, obviously,
the
bookmakers have put Dublin in as 1-7. Most people in Dublin are saying that Laois or that Dublin are absolutely hungry for revenge to get one over on Laois after last year. Are you not hearing that they want Laois? That they've been waiting for this?
Of course they want Laois, but like the idea of blowing them away is the part that I'm taking issue with. Dublin don't have the scorers to blow teams away. Like, it might happen the odd time. They certainly have the players to keep them competitive in so many games. And if they were to put their best six backs in the back six positions, I think they're as good as anyone in the country. I mean, we can go through them. Paddy Smith, you and I both agreed last year he should have been an All-Star nomination. Owen O'Donnell is excellent. Keane O'Callaghan's plenty of years been really good. Chris Crummy, Sean Moore, Shane Barrett's an excellent player. James Madden was really good in the club championship this year. He actually did really good in against Con O'Callaghan in the club final, the county final. But the problem is, Mattie's probably going to have to rip up the script to be competitive. He's going to put Chris Crummy probably in the forward line. I believe that's where he's been operating, even in challenge matches recently. That's certainly where he played in the league. We saw that. I was there that day at Croke Park, the day they lost to 13-man Wexford. Now, to be fair, that was a little bit unfair the way people reviewed that game, because Dublin also finished with 13 men between an injury to Crummy at the time and a red card. I'm not sure exactly who it was to. So that obviously painted things a little bit unfairly, I would say. He might end up in the forward line, and we both know the problem with converting a natural back into the forward line. Is it going to be a situation where, let's say you're the forward, I can mark you, you're not used to the forward movement, sort of making me turn and not be able to look at the ball, so I can essentially watch you and the ball the whole game, and that's the perfect way. It's easy for me to spoil you like that. So Crummy needs to make sure that he's not predictable in that sense, and if he is in the forward line, that he just plays with a little bit of variety and keeps the back guessing. I'm not sure if Sean Moran is going to be in the backs or if he's also going to be moved out to midfield. We saw him closer to the middle of the field during the league, and I can see why too, because he's a scoring threat, and that's something that happened with Kula this year as well. Then the big question is Liam Rush. I mean, in terms of trying to get himself right for a championship, like Dublin, it's absolutely crucial for Dublin that they have him and that he's able to motor for 70 minutes. Last year in the championship, he didn't play against Laois. He was on one leg against Galway, and it was almost that he was costing Dublin because he couldn't do anything on the ball. He was giving his heart, but like when your body isn't right, it's just not right. If he hasn't really played much of a club championship this year, because St. Pat's Palmerstown didn't even fulfil all their fixtures in the Dublin Club Championship. As far as I know, they only played one of them. So assuming he played that game, he's played one competitive game, we'll say. And it's obviously at a much lower level than he's capable of playing. Since I'm not even sure how much he played in the league or how much training he did earlier this year. So he's had months to get himself right and physically able to go for a couple of games. If he can get through it, we know what a ball winner he is. We saw it last year against Kilkenny as well. If you put a ball in the square enough times, that man is going to cause you so much damage. Roland Hayes, he has a good hand around him. He's capable of scores, and I've spoken many times about how I think he could be a top player. Eamon Trollier-Dillon played against him in the B final in the Dublin Championship this year, and also in a group game. He's got lightning speed. If he gets ball on the front foot, he can do damage. Oisin O'Rourke gave Dahi Burke an awful lot of trouble in that knockout Leinster game last year, as it proved. Conal Keaney can win ball. Danny Sutcliffe, and I'm tired of saying if he can get back to 2013-14 levels, but potentially. I remember him scoring 4 points against Waterford in the league last year. Keane Boland is another excellent player that people don't talk about. But the problem is putting it all together. And if you take one or two players out of that, an injury has been an issue for some of these lads. But if you could put it all together, they're going to keep into an awful lot of teams. It's just blown them away. Just can't see it.
I suppose a lot of that is there's a lot of potential, but there's kind of question marks. Is it going to happen? There's potential for it to happen, but is it actually going to happen? And then I put it to you, like, what's success for Dublin in 2020 at this stage? Obviously beating Laois. What's success? What's realistic success after that?
As far as Mattie Kenny is concerned, nothing shy of a Leinster title. I don't think it's. I don't know if he necessarily. No, actually, do you know what? He fully believes it's possible. Some of the players probably believe it's possible. Do you know what? They probably do. But I don't think pretty much anyone else believes it. I think most people would say Wexford are ahead of them, even though they've been neck and neck with Wexford the last couple of years. They beat Galway last year. They pushed Dublin, or they pushed Kilkenny really close the last couple of years. Faded away in the second half last year, and played disastrously in the league this year. Kilkenny went down to 14 men early on and then battered Dublin for whatever happened there. So Dublin obviously have an awful lot to sort out. But in their heads, they'll be thinking we can win a Leinster title. And it's not as if going back to 2013 that necessarily people were saying, oh sure, look, Dublin are going to win this. And to be honest, they probably should have gone on to win the All-Ireland. There's probably a few other players that we haven't mentioned that they've got in tow there as well. Like Fergal Whiteley's a player of good potential and he can get some scores. Paul Ryan is there, John Heatherton, Hedgehoe, he's there, David Tracy, my own clubmate as well. There are plenty of players there who can do damage, but for Dublin, it's just putting it all together, making it click. That is the problem.
You'd wonder as well, we've talked about in other videos about best free taker and who's the most reliable kind of free taker in a winter championship. You'd wonder, there's probably doubts, like I'm sure they know, but there's two or three different lads that we'd probably think in our head could be hitting frees, which is another thing. They can't afford to be missing two or three frees, which they have in many big games over the last couple of years. Liam Rush is a huge one because they need that focal point at the edge of the square. He offers them something different. They can put in high ball, they can put in ball in front of him. If he's bouncing like he is on a good day when he's fully fit, he's unbelievably dangerous. The balancing act of putting Crummy into the forwards and then taking a big kind of a springboard away from your backs is another one. Maybe Mattie Kenny be better off to go with what he knows and put Crummy wing back, but it looks like he's going to be playing the forwards. That kind of creates more kind of question marks. There's going to be a lack of cohesion in the attack, even more so maybe than last year. I think a lot of teams will, when they're going at Dublin or look at Dublin and where they need to break them down, I think if you can stop them winning puckouts, and I know but if you can stop them getting hands on primary ball, if you can get the ball to the ground against Keeney, against Crummy, against Danny Sutcliffe, I think you've got a great chance against them, because I don't know how many lads, particularly in the forward line, that real kind of silky forwards that are going to absolutely skin them on the ground or anything like that. I don't think they obviously don't have a Patrick Horgan, they don't have a TJ Reid, that type of a player. But if you can nail them on puckouts, and I think that's probably what Laois will go after in the first round, try and stop them winning primary ball. It'd be interesting to see what their kind of reserves are like after that, or what the plan B is like after that. You mentioned Mattie is probably eyeing a Leinster title. Yeah, I suppose I'm kind of maybe down on them a bit. If they're able to beat Laois by 5 or 6 points and put up a very good performance against Kilkenny, I would probably see that as progress, and that's progress just based on the league form earlier on this year, which was really, really poor. But it'll be interesting to see. You just don't know what teams have been doing throughout lockdown and what teams have been doing over the last 4 or 5 weeks, how cohesive things are going to be. But there's definitely way more question marks than answers with Dublin. And I'd be I'd be shocked if they got to a Leinster final, let's be honest.
Yeah, they're 9-1 to win Leinster and 50-1 to win the All-Ireland. So basically the bookies are more or less writing them off at this stage. You've talked about whether they're that good at winning the prime or dirty ball, and I know from experience that this is one of the things that'll be focused on probably more so than anything. Now, whether you can actually translate that to winning them on the field is another thing, but this is something that's immeasurable probably for nearly every team. How much 50-50 ball are we winning, how much of the second ball, how many rucks, how many tackles, how many hooks, blocks, the whole lot. This is something that's going to be focused on to the nth degree. And if you have, we keep talking about Rush here, no one outside the camp really knows where he's at. But if you have him in that forward line, if you have, we've named an awful lot of big physical players to have, Crummy, Keeney, Sean Moran's not small and certainly not shy. Go through the backs there, Owen O'Donnell, he'd ate you without salt. they do have lads who can get stuck into you. I don't necessarily think there's an issue in terms of winning ball there. They might play a seventh defender. You might see Jake Malone start midfield but sit back a little bit, giving license to the likes of Sean Moran to get forward. I'm not sure whether he's going to be midfield, half-back, whatever he is. But I think there's going to be a plan to shut up the back line. Or shut down the channels for teams to run through. And I think they're going to look to release runners up the middle. This would be a recurring theme that we've seen from Mattie over the years. But also to have be fiercely competitive in the tackle and the forward line. Interested to see how that will manifest itself when the championship comes around. I'm sort of somewhere in between thinking these Dublin players, they will die with their boots on. I mean, I've seen it for the last few years, especially since Gilroy came back in. There was a couple of those games I watched them in Parnell Park, and these boys absolutely emptied themselves. Yeah, there's definitely a bit of a quality deficit. I think they can overcome Laois. I think they can give a really good account of themselves throughout this championship. I don't think it's going to return silverware, but I think there will be a belief there that they could do something.
If there is a belief there, and if they're that cohesive, there's loads of talent there. It's just a matter of pulling it all together. We've named out loads of forwards in particular, and I suppose it's how they've been able to fit those pieces of the puzzle in over the last while. You could have, I was actually reading Bernard Brogan's book there over the last couple of days, and he talked about the forward line in DCU with Conor Mortimer and Shawnee Johnson and a couple of other really good forwards, and they couldn't play Brogan inside the full forward line with the other two because there was some kind of a balance in the forward line. And it's like that with Dublin. You're just not sure how you're going to kind of balance it off and to get the best out of them. It's going to be interesting. I'm kind of a bit of a doubting Thomas about Dublin this year, having just watched them a couple of times, and I probably have to believe it when I see it. But there's no doubt that the talent is there. And would it be an upset? Would it be a massive upset if Dublin got to a Leinster final? It would be for me, being honest with you. But do they have the capability of doing it? Of course they do. It's just a matter of meshing all that together. But from what I saw before lockdown and the limited time they've had after that, I'm just not sure. I think Mattie would have had to pull a bit of a rabbit out of a hat to pull that all together in that space of time. And I just don't think that generally happens with a team. They weren't going well before lockdown, and I'd be surprised if there's, if he's been able to flick a switch and things are going unbelievably well after it.
I think you can understand why I'm a little bit torn here, because I have several club mates who are involved in the panel and on the team. The flip side is I did watch the league like you did. I saw that they lost to Kilkenny, to Clare, to Wexford. Pretty much all of them in one way or another were in poor enough circumstances, whether it was falling away against Wexford or getting beaten heavily by Kilkenny and Clare. I see that, I understand that, there's no getting away from it. So from that point of view, you doubting, anyone else doubting them, I get that. The victories were over Laois, they were over Carlow. You're not exactly pulling up trees with that. They're both good teams and developing and all the rest of the stuff that shows the respect we have for them. We talk about them a lot. So Dublin really haven't done quite enough. Yes, they beat Galway last year, but that does feel like a long time ago now. But there's just something in me that thinks that they're going to produce performance. Whether it's going to, performances, whether it's going to translate to victories and enough scores, you need to be a team that scores 222, 223 to be consistently winning these games. And without the crowds, by the way, I think scoring rates are going to shoot up. We've seen it in the Premier League, we've seen it in American football, no doubt other sports as well. The first round of the league, when that came back, you're probably going to be needing to score even more again. And yeah, for that reason, I accept it. They're probably not going to win championship silverware, but I do think that they're going to die with their boots on.
If Dublin are beaten by Laois, they will not turn around their season at all, and it'll be an absolute disaster. And I could see the end for Mattie Kenny. If they win convincingly and put up a big show in a Leinster semi-final, it's completely different. So that first game,
I don't think they have to win convincingly. I just think they have to win, and it is the perfect game from that point of view. In that, as a manager, you want a stick to beat your players with and wind them up to the last. So he couldn't have got a better draw. I don't think that they have to beat them convincingly. They just have to win. I mean, Tipperary beat Laois last year and didn't exactly pull up trees, got through, and they pulled up trees later on. They just need to win.
Okay, I from my point of view, with how I've seen them going, I think they need to put in some sort of a performance that lays down a bit of a marker and not be kind of falling into a Leinster semi-final. I think when Dublin are going well, they're generally very, very consistent, and there's good performances across the board. I think if they fall across the line or something like that, I think there could be landing into a fairly heavy beating against Kilkenny.
Okay, well, that's our thoughts on Dublin season. Let us know what you think. And if you want to get these jerseys, pretty tasty stuff, go to orgaretro.com and put in the promo code Our Game.